I've
Charlie, why don't you give us a countdown and we'll start the meeting.
Let's just make sure we are recording.
Recording in
Put
progress.
the webinar recording, and then I will count you in. All right, we'll go live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening. This is Bernard Green, Chair of the Brookline Select Board, and this is the meeting of the Select Board for April 16, 2024. Let's start off with announcements and updates from Select Board members. Anything that you want to mention? Miriam.
Yeah, I'll just quickly say for those of you that are listening, I'm out of the country, and for those of you that don't know, we cannot access our brooklinemass.gov email when we're out of the country. So if you're emailing me this week, I cannot want to. I'll get back to you when I get back.
Okay, thank you. Any other updates or comments or announcements?
I have a quick one, Bernard.
Okay, John.
Well, Bernard and I think maybe Miriam as well. I understand you may have been at the kickoff dinner for our team Brookline.
Yep.
The marathon runners. And you must have done a good job because they did a really good job.
Take no credit.
I just found out, breaking news here, all 34 Team Brookline runners did indeed cross the finish line. And so far, and they are still counting the fundraising from the runners, they are at $319,000, which I think is, nothing to sneeze at. Even
and
during
a record too, right?
I don't think it's a record, but I would have to go back and check. But it's a very good amount.
Yeah.
And that's for a bunch of local nonprofits, including the Brookline Community Mental Health Center, which serves as sort of the overseer of Team Brookline. So it's been many years that the folks over there at the Brookline Center for Community Mental Health have successfully kept this Team Brookline going, and it's a wonderful part of the Boston Marathon experience for many of us. And people who maybe thought they would donate but didn't get around to donating can still do so. They can go to the Team Brookline site and they can still donate.
Great, thank you. Okay, any other announcements or updates?
just that there were two of us, Miriam and I, at the finish line watching the first of the Team Brookline folks come through.
Good.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's great.
You weren't at the starting line.
No.
In
But
other words, you didn't
it
run
was
it.
really fun.
Okay.
It was great.
Yeah. Chaz?
Thanks very much. I just wanted to one extend our the congratulations here in the office to the team that helped make the marathon run so smoothly across many different communities, especially Lieutenant Hatchett, who served as as in command, and Cheryl, and both chiefs, and Aaron in DPW, and just a large number of people who put in a huge amount of time and effort. Our new communications officer, Christina Metcalf, was out taking pictures and doing some recon. Really great event, and a wonderful time. So thanks to everyone who made that possible. And then on
And
the
by the way, social media is abuzz with how great a job DPW did cleaning up afterwards. So
Yeah.
that's great. And that was a real concern of a lot of people, especially with the rat situation. But
yeah, and I
so
know it was
give them
especially
our thanks.
Kevin Johnson and his whole team, the whole team really did excellent work. So thanks to the whole group. And then the National Community Survey, which we conduct on a regular basis. Those questions went out and will be available starting tomorrow through the end of the month. The survey will ask for a zip code. A survey will ask for a zip code and an email to submit the survey. This will ensure we only have one response per person, and it allows us to start building up a digital panel of residents we can follow. We can, ensure that we can continue to ask questions of the community about initiatives or other hot topic issues. So if you have received a postcard asking you to fill out the National Community Survey, or you received a copy of the physical survey, please fill that out and be sure to send it back to us at the address requested. I know there's a lot of paper going out in the mail. A lot of people are being asked a lot of questions about a lot of things. This is really critical to ensuring that the select board and town staff have information about how you live in this community, the things that matter to you, and what we can do to be, good stewards of your time and efforts to make sure you can be supported here. So thank you for filling that out if you receive it.
Great, thank you. Anything else? Okay, let's move on to public comment. Charlie announced the rules, and I will enforce them with my mallet here.
Oh, good.
Hopefully audible over Zoom, right? Doesn't cut out the microphone or anything.
Without
for
breaking
joining.
the screen of my computer.
Right, yes, yeah, don't go that far. So, all right, folks, thank you for joining us for public comment. This is an opportunity for us to hear your perspective on the issues in Brookline that matter to you. The person speaking tonight is limited to 3 minutes. You don't need to use the entire time, but you may if you like. Once a total of 15 minutes has been met, there will be an opportunity at the conclusion of the select board's business for additional comments. Members of the public sometimes raise questions during public comment. We may be able to provide a quick answer to a question, but are more likely to work with staff to get a more thorough answer and respond over email. We'll let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining and when your time is up. Please conclude your remarks at that time. If you have anything more to say, you are welcome to send an email to select board members expressing your thoughts in greater detail. So since we are on Zoom, folks who are in attendance can use the hand raise or Q&A feature to let us know that they would like to make a public comment, and we'll promote you. So click the hand raise under at the bottom or use the Q&A feature. We'll give that a second. We do have one person with their hand raised. They don't have a name on their they don't have a name on their account. I'm going to promote them anyway, and we'll just be ready to react if need be. So you may unmute your audio and show your camera if you're willing, and then please identify yourself before your 3 minutes will begin.
Yeah, thank you, Charlie. Name's Adi Ijanusi, Brookline resident, precinct 4. I don't know what's going on with the Zoom and my sign, but good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for letting me speak this evening. A couple of points. Number one, the issue, we're having a little issue here at Brookline Avenue Park. Sometimes the dog park get closed up and people bring their dogs into where the kids play. That happened to be the same park that the early education school on Brookline Avenue uses. So that's been an issue because a lot of the kids happen to start playing in poop that the teachers around there have to leave a sign on the park, even though it's there, that dogs are not allowed in that park. So we don't know if the select board can help in reaching out to DPW. Some residents have already done that, but we haven't gotten an answer. So if they could kind of put a big sign when they lock the main field where the dogs use and leave a sign in front of the children's park that people shouldn't let their dogs go there because kids happen to be stepping in poop, and now the teachers have to deal with that. Would greatly appreciate that issue being solved. Number two, I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Chief Pastor. I think last week she mentioned one of our officers already a drone operator. So that's a good thing to know that some people are actually listening to us to what the future would be, and that's going to help Brookline Police Department be more efficient. Number three, I would also like to use that medium to congratulate the ATP 107 cohorts, 100% graduation rate, and all now 107 drone pilots. So I would like to appreciate the leaders from the Black and Brown community for stepping up, and those that are becoming foundational pillar in helping us build and finding a path towards economic equity for our people living in Brookline for the future. Remember, not too long ago, we had made mockery of openly that our ideas wasn't something that was going to be effective. But the drone package and the aviation industry and the drone industry is going to be one of the rapid growing industry in 2025 with a lot of jobs. So that's all I just wanted to say. Congratulations to the community leaders, and we hope and look forward to continue to do the good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, folks, again, can use the hand raise or Q&A feature to let us know that, that they would like to make a comment. I just grabbed the wrong person and promoted them to put them back down into attendees. So Bernard, I'm going to be sending you another promotion invite. And again, folks can use the hand raise or Q&A feature to let us know they'd like to make a comment. And once the chair is back, Bernard, it seems like nobody else would like to make a comment.
Okay, I am back.
Sorry about that, Bernard, but we're good to go.
Okay. Okay, next, department budget review of the fiscal year 25 department budgets for the Health and Human Services Department and the Building Department. I think building is first. Is that correct? Yeah. We've asked the departments to discuss in their presentations their accomplishments, their goals for the upcoming year, and any new initiatives and what they would do if their budget allowed an unlimited number of new programs or projects. So hopefully that will be informative to the select board, and yeah, good. Anyway, go ahead. Dan Bennett, I see, is here.
Good evening, Dan Bennett, Building Commissioner. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. Charlie, can I share my screen?
You should be able to now, Dan.
All right, so I will share my screen and go through a quick presentation. Let me find it. Can you see that now?
Yep.
Looks good.
Great. So there's the Building Department FY25 budget. The Building Department has various divisions that have responsibilities within the town: public buildings, code enforcement, inspections, and then construction and CIP. Work indicators for each of those divisions are under public buildings. We did just over 11,000 in-house work orders. Those are in-house tradesmen, people that work for the town, electricians, plumbers, painters, carpenters. And we did about 1,720 outside contractor service orders. Those are the larger jobs that the in-house guys don't either have the time to do, or it might be too big for them to do. On the code enforcement side, we have issued just right around 6,800 permits and processed applications. We've performed in excess of 10,000 inspections and responded to 175 complaints. And in the CIP of the construction division, we had Tony Quigley, who retired after many years of service to the town, was taken over by Lap Yan. He's acclimated very well. He wasn't here for a lot of this, but he will be here for the Pierce School. We have approximately 680,000 square feet of school space and about $800 million worth of construction going back to approximately the Ridley School. I followed the narrative that was sent out by Chaz. Three biggest accomplishments for the building department this year were the implementation and execution of the capital improvement plan, implement of the stretch energy code, the specialized code, and the pilot energy code, as well as advancing electrification. With respect to the CIP plan, we did complete the Bristol School. In October, it was occupied. We are now in the process of demolishing, or the rear building has been demolished, and the geothermal wells are being installed. We've advanced the Pierce School design, and we've proceeded with the fire station upgrade project. We're beginning with stations number 1 and 4, and that's a $65 million project that was voted, I think, 2 years ago, as well as the police department locker room. With respect to the energy codes, we've essentially gone through 3 various codes over the last year, and through that implementation, it has, delayed the process that my inspectors go through, but at the end of the day, it wasn't as big a deal as we initially thought it was going to be. I can report that we have, I don't have the structures, and I have 11 new structures that are fossil fuel free, and I have the unit number in here. For whatever reason, I have misplaced them, but we're in the area of about, this is all buildings, so I think it's about 50 to 60 units that have been created that are all fossil fuel free as a result of this, code, which, is better than I had initially. If I really dug down into some of the numbers, I think you would find that there could be more. It's difficult for me to go into some of the trigger is a major alteration. This is just pulled out of all the new structure that we've had in town, and those would have to be fossil fuel free based on various factors. The 3 key goals for this year for the building department are continue recruiting efforts and staffing the building department, as well as the department reorganization. This is something we began last year. We're in our 2nd year, and we have a 3rd year next year. Again, implementation of the CIP. We want to advance a in-house construction kind of management software that a lot of the construction firms are using Procore. We use it individually. We're allowed to get access through the various construction projects, but we don't have our own. If we were to secure that, and we have asked for that through ARPA, it would help in our CIP process and digitizing of plans and documents that go with every capital project. And then the last there is the scanning and digitizing of all building department documents. We continue on the Excel program. Everything is digitized since 2017, but I'm trying to go back in time and get some of the older records scanned in and done. I'll talk about that again in the next couple of slides. And then advancement of electrification for town and school buildings. The senior center is a building that we had requested some ARPA funding for. That is in the process. We're going through the design phase and probably bid phase, and probably implementation would probably be in the spring of 25. The Hayes School, formerly the Hayes School, is we're doing some electrification over there with some heat pumps in the B wing. And as you know, the Pierce School will be all electric, whether it's geothermal or some other heating mechanism, and the Driscoll School in the same manner will be geothermal. Some of the initiatives that we want to pursue in the building department. Right now, it's the Excel enhancement and expansion, and that's the program that the building department uses, the select board's office uses, the health department, fire, and various town departments for licensing and permitting. That's a continuing growth within the IT department. And they've got a dedicated employee that kind of assists us on a daily basis, and we continue to do what we can to expand that program for online services and in reviews and just other more efficient methods that the residents and designers and people can access and attain permits and licenses. Sorry. With respect to some of the personnel that I would need to hire, local building inspector has been there for some time. I was up to 5 for about 2 months, and then my inspectors left, so I'm back down to 4. I do have funding for a 5th position, so that's something we're out looking for. One of the newer positions in our reorganization is a strategic preventative maintenance support coordinator. That person would work with our 2 deputy directors and kind of coordinate between the 2 capital division and the operations division to assist in projects and put plans and projects forward. If I was not constrained by some of the budgetary limitations, there's a few things that we would do. Electrification would be one. Charlie did put out a number that was was hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars and what it would cost to electrify all town buildings. If there was an unlimited budget, that's certainly something that we would, pursue and want to do. In addition to that, electric fleet and solar installations, any of those types of things moving into the sustainability realm would be helpful. Document scanning, it is something that I have been doing, for my time here. I did put in another ARPA request. I received $30,000 to do some more in the process of doing. And if I could do all the documents, it would be great. In addition, some sort of a report on all town buildings with respect to the roof, envelope, all the systems would be another, unlimited type thing. We do have reports in right now for roof and envelope. They're about 20. I think we did a 20-year and a 30-year, and we're looking to renew those. But there are certainly other areas of any building infrastructure that we would prefer to analyze and get, a nice overview of what we have, where they're at, and what needs to be done. And lastly, it's just more staffing with respect to code enforcement and zoning and plan review type of things that we would, like to, see in the department. And the last slides are just some pictures and photos of some projects that we have completed or under construction or in progress. So here's the Driscoll School. Again, that was occupied in October of 23. This is the demolition, partial demolition of the rear school in the lot. I mean, that building is now gone. Most of the materials, they're probably gone by now. And the geothermal wells are in the process of being installed. The next photo is 40 Center Street. These are both 40B projects. 40 Center Street right behind the town parking lot. That's under construction. And then 108 Center, they're well underway and moving along. This is the Balfour project. This is for a Newbury site. These are some aerials that I received from the contractor. I think these photos are maybe 3 or 4 months apart. The one on the right is a little bit further along. You can see the construction of the connection, on the right-hand side. It's not there on the left, and there's some work going between the former Mitten House and the new structure. And completed projects over at Hancock Village is the community center and Jerry Road. That's a multifamily on the right, and this community center for residents there on the left. And this is the Pudding Stone project that is under construction. This is, I think, a little bit further along than they had anticipated, but this is the one where they did come to the board, I think, maybe a year ago, looking for permission to work outside of the scheduled hours to try to see if they can move the project along. But it doesn't seem to have been a huge issue. And we receive complaints every once in a while from the residents. But it does seem to be moving along, and we're happy with that. So that's everything. Have any questions? I can answer for you.
Great, thank you. It's very interesting, very helpful. Any questions from the select board? Miriam?
Thanks, Dan. I really appreciate that. You mentioned, I am asking the same question for everybody. In your presentation, you'd mentioned the ARPA funding for the electrification of the senior center. Did the building commission, did you guys receive ARPA funding for anything else? And if so, can you just give a quick update on that, where that is?
Yeah, so I received ARPA.
Great, by the way.
Excuse me?
Great presentation.
Thank you, appreciate it. I received ARPA funding for $30,000 to do some scanning. And this is a continuation of my plan scanning. Those are all up on the 7th floor, and then we attach them to permits that are in the Excel system. That gives any resident the ability to sit at home and see those plans as opposed to coming into town and having staff go and grab them. So that's something that I have been working towards for 10 years or so. We have the ARPA funding for the senior center, and I don't believe, I'm not aware of any other funding that we have. Well, we did receive funding for some electric vehicles as well.
There was the health building too, but the ultimate decision was made that if we could only fund one of those projects because of the increasing costs, the senior center would be the one.
Right, and yeah, I mean, I thought we originally put in for 3 buildings, but it was just the prices grew too fast, so we went down to the one. And we do have funding. We have requests in for additional funding in round 3 for more scanning, and I think Charlie might have something in for looking at some sort of an analysis of the buildings on electrification and what that would take in various town buildings.
Great, thank you very much.
Any other questions? Let me ask a question. Touchy subject, and I know you're working on this, but I just hear constantly a constant drone on about painting the senior center. Could you give us a sense of the sort of timeline for that? Any issues that arise there?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, we don't have any funding, for that at this point. Typically, we have a mini CIP that is put in place for both town and schools. We could certainly look at that mini CIP and see if there'd be room for that. I do know that, I think we did 2nd or 3rd floor renovation over there 5 or 6 years ago. There's work that Charlie has done piecemeal, but it hasn't been, one full, go through the whole building and paint it. And that's what our mini CIP is for. I'm not sure if the senior center has put requests in through Charlie. That's typically how that process works, but it's something I could look into and try to get back to you with an answer.
Any other questions? John.
Thank you. And Dan, thank you for everything you and the department do. I know that this has been a subject that people have thought about and worked on for quite some time. Do you feel we have a handle on how to weigh the relative needs of the facilities that are defined best as being town buildings and the facilities that are defined best as school buildings, so that the distribution of the effort of the department, but also the distribution of the funding for upkeep and maintenance and capital improvements is proportional to the number of buildings that are under each of those umbrellas and their age, their condition, their needs?
So certainly you could look at a building and say that's town or that's school. That's pretty clear, and I think there's no question with respect to that. We have a work order program that we can run and show pretty clearly how much of our man hours are in a school building versus a town building. And right now, my understanding is it's a 75-25% split in the salaries for the tradesmen, 75 towards the schools. And my inclination is that it's probably more if you go into the real world and look at it, closer. We have not done that. The other issue or concern that has come up more importantly this year, more so than last year, is in our capital, there are a lot of line items that say town school. And this year we were really questioned more so than in the past on, well, how much of that is town and how much of that is school? And, that those line items and that process or whatever you want to call it was set up many years ago. And it's hard to say in any before the money spent, after we could clearly do it. But I think it was set up that way more for flexibility, that if something came up in, for instance, a energy systems management type of thing, and if something blew up on a town building in any given year, and we had to use a majority of that money on the town side, then we could say, yeah, that money was used for town after the fact. But prior to, it's hard to say, other than, we know what we're doing with some elevators, so we can kind of predict what those are for town and school. We know what we're doing for some roofs, so we could probably show, where that, town and school is. There are some things that we could pretty clearly show, but there are others that it's more difficult to do in any given year. And again, I think it's just more for flexibility. If we label it town, we can never use it in schools, and if we label it schools, we can never use it in town. And I think it has been, possibly beneficial. But I do know that the advisory, both full advisory and subcommittee, have been on us for this year, and they may look to make a change. I don't know, but they are going through the CIP very closely, and I think they're going to, Charlie could answer better. I think they're going to make some changes to what, how Melissa has laid out, most of that funding for whatever reason. And, we've just, done the best to state our case and what we need our funding for and what we're going to do with it, and try to lay out where the town side is and where the school side is. But it can get gray at times, certainly.
Bernard, if I may ask another question?
Sure.
Thank you very much. And Dan, the question is this. In discussions of school buildings, it's not unusual to hear the phrase "end of its useful life." I mean, the state school building authority even has a condition that they apply to, their participation in funding a new building, which is, the building has to have a useful life of 50 years. So they sort of see buildings as, being replaceable after 50 years. Is there some standard like that is looked at for town buildings? Does anybody ever say this town building is at the end of its useful life?
I've never heard that. I have heard end of useful life more so on the school side, and not just in this community, but in my previous community. And the state, for whatever reason, has now put a program into effect, apparently, that identifies something to that effect. But you can look at a lot of, buildings. You can look at residential buildings, look at our fire stations. If someone wanted to claim, end of useful life, if some of those could be looked at, whether we could make the final determination that they're at the end of their useful life remains to be seen, because there's always some sort of a renovation or an addition or something that you could do. And I think the town's done pretty well. Fire stations, for instance, we're going to be spending a lot of money on those in the next 5 years or so. And part of that program is to convert those for electrification and bring them up to date more so now with respect to the health of the firefighters themselves. So when they come into the into the station after a fire, that these various areas are separated out between the apparatus bay, an area where you take off your turnout gear, where you eat, where you sleep. And in years past, those weren't that easily defined, but that would be a place where you might use that term, but I don't hear it too much outside of the school, the MSBA type of that.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Oh, Chaz, you have your hand up.
I just wanted to chime in that one of the things the state is considering, the legislature is considering, is kind of a companion body to MSBA for the construction of public safety buildings in communities, and providing that level of state assistance or a related level of state assistance. So as that continues, you'll probably start to see increased discussions of useful life metrics and so forth with public buildings other than schools.
That's good news.
But that was in the details, though.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Really appreciate it. Very helpful.
Thanks.
Okay, next we have the Health and Human Services Department. And I see Sigali Reese is joining us.
Hi, good evening. It's the Gallery
Good evening.
Director of Public Health and Human Services. Thanks for having me.
Mhm.
I'll go ahead and also share my screen. I have a brief presentation and then hoping to have a great conversation with you guys about the budget and the department.
Great.
Okay, so for our numbers, pretty much a holding pattern, really a flat budget going to FY25. We're going to get into some of those reasons as more as we talk about operations, but overall numbers are pretty flat. I wanted to share this infographic. We created this at the end of calendar year 23, just to share some of the work that we did over the year and to look ahead at some of the projects that we are working on. But this was a great also to communicate what we're working on in the department. We shared this widely on social media and in the community. Looking back at the accomplishments with the department, a lot of these, the select board has been involved with, including the Metro Public Health Collaborative. So the department secured an increase in the State Public Health Excellence Grant for over $570,000 per year to build the Metro's Public Health Collaborative, and this is with Newton, Arlington, and Belmont. And the goal of the collaborative is really to support participating communities in sustaining performance standards set forth by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. And the shared services staff provide direct capacity support to health departments, activities and services for Brookline and the other 3 collaborative communities. Specific things that the shared staff have supported include the Brookline Bounty Food Program, the Community Health Assessment, Community Health Improvement Plan, and the Rodent Action Plan. They've helped install a formal onboarding program for new staff in the department and also support the department applying for additional grants. As part of the Public Health Excellence Program, the state has developed a capacity assessment tool to measure how the collaborative has progressed towards the defined standards that the state has set for local health departments. And we've all gone through the first round of assessment. That actually information is up on a dashboard on the state website. And this year will be an internal review, and the next year we'll do another formal assessment with the state to see our progress towards meeting those standards. So it's nice to have that built-in evaluation into the program. The second accomplishment I want to highlight, the department completed the comprehensive Brookline marijuana research study. The study used primary and secondary data sources and provided recommendations considering the social drivers or social determinants of health. The Substance Use and Violence Prevention Team is now working to incorporate the recommendations into our programs. It will inform a lot of the work with the peer youth leaders and also drive the partnership with the schools around data gathering, management, and sharing. And we continue to evaluate the data from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey to really measure our long-term goals with reducing youth substance use and improving mental health outcomes. And lastly, I wanted to highlight the Brookline Bounty Program as a great accomplishment. Continues to be a success with a growing number of families gaining access to the food coupon program. We not only monitor purchases and evaluate the types of purchases with the food, but we also take into account, obviously, the number of households. And the first year in 2021, we had 489 households. We had 604 in 22, and then the last season in 23, we had 700 families participate, and we're really looking forward to the season to increase those numbers even more. So looking forward at some major goals and projects that we're working on, really two large studies that we're working on. I mentioned the community health assessment and the community health improvement plan, and also the human services mapping assessment. We're in the final stages of the community health assessment, really just waiting on some state data from the community health equity survey. And we have moved into the second year of the project, which is the community health improvement plan. The CHIP involves an in-depth engagement process to identify priorities from looking at the community health assessment, the CHA. And we're engaging in that process with stakeholders in April and May. And we actually had our first meeting last week. We reviewed the key findings from the community health assessment and voted on 4 top priorities. So breaking news here. The 4 top priorities for the health improvement plan will include financial security, access to social and health services, housing affordability, and mental health and behavioral health. So those are 4 really huge topics that we will now work through the next really 2 months with this community engagement group to really narrow down on actionable items we can take to address those 4 categories. And then parallel to that, and I think will very well complement it as access to social and health services was identified as a priority from the CHIP, is the human services study. So the human service study will summarize human services available to Brookline residents, and this of course is throughout the whole community, including information on providers, resources, and populations served, and identify existing collaborations and connections between providers, and note opportunities where we can strengthen some of those existing partnerships. The gap analysis will identify the needs and the gaps, such as funding, demand for services, or barriers, or anything preventing access or utilization. So in the human services study, we have identified 4 categories of services shown in the infographic here. And you can see we sort of break down health into behavioral health, physical health, and oral health, and then the categories above that. And then thinking about human services, it's more about not only the services, but the different access for different populations. So we actually so within those services, we break down the population subgroups. And I will say there's actually one not listed here. After we made the infographic, we did add veteran services, a specific subgroup that we wanted to look at. So it's really how these different subgroups access all those different services. And I would say each subgroup might have different access barriers. For example, we can think about language when we're talking about immigrant and refugee services. There might be language access there. We might talk about discrimination and disability and BIPOC population. So understanding all those different access barriers. The final report will develop options that really transform the goals of the assessment and the gap analysis into realistic and achievable targets. So I think we're really looking forward to have those actionable items and recommendations at the end of that report. And I do anticipate that that will be at the end of summer or in early fall. So key components of both the community health assessment and the human services gap analysis have been community engagement. Not only do both gather local survey data, but each one has key informant interviews and focus groups, as well as looking at secondary data sources in the assessment portion. Aside from those huge big studies, which are consuming a lot of the department's effort, I do really want to highlight the work we're doing around harm reduction and substance use. The department has taken on installing SAM boxes, they're called, they're Good Samaritan boxes. Similar to an AED, we want to make sure that naloxone is widely available and accessible to save a life. And so you'll see a little picture down there. I hope it's you can see it on your computers, but it's the opioid overdose rescue kits with naloxone, and those have already gone up in a lot of our public buildings. A parallel program to that is our naloxone distribution program called Project CAN, Citizens Accessing Naloxone, where we provide harm reduction kits with naloxone, fentanyl strips, and treatment information. And this is available for residents, any residents to come pick up at our department, and we're also working with many of our community partners to make sure there's awareness of the program and distribution in the community. So since July of 23, we've distributed 249 kits, each with 2 doses, so 489 doses of naloxone. Like I said, we continue to look to work with our community partners on that distribution. I just wanted to quickly share the survey because it is live, and always a lot of surveys, but they're really important as a way to gather information. So this is our survey for the human services assessment and gap analysis. So that is live and out there, and we'll be pushing that out in the community and again, partnering with our stakeholders. Looking at long-term goals and objectives, like I keep saying, these 2 main studies will really prioritize actions for the department and for the community. But I do want to highlight a few other long-term projects, including the food safety program. The Environmental Health Division has enrolled in the FDA National Program Standards. And this is an effort by the FDA to ensure health departments, local health departments, are regulating food adequately and appropriately, having enough training and using established baselines for regulatory engagement. And there's 4 priorities that the FDA set up for inspection services like ours. So excited to get Brookline enrolled in that process and starting the self-evaluation. We continue to build on the Metro Public Health Collaborative to meet the performance standards and really build up that regional structure. And like I said, continue to work on the community health assessment improvement plan, which will outline the goals and objectives for the coming years. And I really, at the beginning, described the budget as really in a holding pattern. I really see this as a planning year with the completion of the CHIP and the human services study at the end of the summer and early fall. I have a better understanding for the needs and possible solutions. And these will really be and again, I want to prioritize that these will be determined based on a lot of community input in the reports. So, if sort of the question of, what would you do if you had unlimited funding, what every department head would love to have, I think I would really look at what the recommendations are from these studies and be able to implement them all, because realistically, I think that is going to be a challenge for us. I wanted to quickly just put in here a slide on update on the rodent response. The department continues to collaborate with Public Works and the Building Department on the Rodent Control Action Plan. Overall, we know there's a multi-pronged approach needed to manage pest control, including solid waste storage and disposal, proper pest control, cleaning and sanitation, and public awareness. We have continued to track complaints and respond to high complaint areas with interventions such as solid waste inspections, adjusting the modern smart system, and public awareness. We began redirecting all complaints to Book Online in 2023, and this had allowed us to track complaints over time. And with the start of 24, we can now start to compare seasonal changes and complaint trends. And you can see on the graph here, we report the data on a monthly basis. Complaints tend to go up in the summer and fall and drop over the winter months, where really visible rodent activity drops, and contributing factors such as outdoor dining cease. As with all rodent activity, it is highly connected to human patterns and activity. So we see, a lot of, I always say a lot what we like is a lot what they like, good weather and food, they become more active just like we do. But this information, this is one of the graphs that we present on the website, updating the information monthly. And again, this looks at complaints over time, and you can see the red line was 2023, and the blue line is we've been able to start compare year to year. We were really excited in January to see that drop, but I would say February and March have pretty much been on par with the number of complaints. And while this is a very visual thing to look at, it is just one of the many things that we're looking at to try to measure how effective we are. But as I always stress, it is really hard to measure how effective we are in rodent control. In addition, up at the top there, that is an infographic we created with Public Works to share the new requirements for dumpsters with operators and with the public, and that was a part of the solid waste regulations update. I do want to mention 2 new programs that we'll be implementing, and because of the regional collaborative, we're able to do this. We're going to continue to work with Burger Food Safety with our food establishments and establish an educational program for our food establishments. Some of the feedback we got from that consultant that we brought in to help us do preventative rodent inspections with all our food establishments, but she said our number 1 priority should be around education. So we're going to be developing with them an education campaign, rolling it out actually regionally. The second component, again, with that regional collaborative, because we are all struggling with this issue, it's a common thread that we discuss at our monthly meetings. We'll also be doing a PR campaign focused on rodent control and measures we can all take to help reduce rodent activity in communities. The campaign will have PSA, social media content, and press releases. So a lot more to come on that. And then continued demands. We continue to be stretched to meet the new demands of new bylaws and initiatives, like a couple of the ones listed here. In addition, many of the staff still tend to be new, and we continue to have some turnover, although a lot less, than when I first got here. And this also obviously consumes time with training and onboarding new staff, but there's really a loss of institutional knowledge and a loss of connection with community groups. So one of the things we've been working on is to try and document and formalize our relationships with our partners by establishing memorandums of understanding. And we have one with the Brookline Center for Community Mental Health, and we also have one with the schools, which really outline that partnership. So if any of the leadership sort of steps in or out, there's at least an outline of what that looks like. For personnel changes, really because of the regional structure, that's been the additional staff that we've been able to hire, which is grant funded from the Public Health Excellence Grant. And again, the goal of that program is to really build up public health infrastructure and staffing through a regional approach. And then as outlined in the memo, I tried to draw the specific accomplishments and objectives from the board's report and highlight the department's impact. And we've talked a lot about this in my earlier slides. I look forward to continuing to work with partners on the Office of Housing Stability and how that interacts with the social services network, but also our inspectional services. Continue to develop and staff the Regional Public Health Collaborative. In addition, we're working with our Substance Use and Violence Prevention Division to put the cannabis study into action into our programming, and continue to work on that data gathering with the schools. And as stated earlier, we're working on the Human Services and Social Services Inventory and Recommendations, which will be a key objective for FY25, and also looking at about how we can incorporate the objectives of the Office of Housing Stability. And short-term rental and lodging houses continue to draw on our inspectional services to ensure that health and safety standards are met there. Overall, the goals of diversity, equity, and community engagement are important cornerstones of public health programming and policy, as well as the need for housing and climate change that significant public health impacts. So a lot of alignment there. So I look forward to discussing these and answering any questions.
Thank you, Sigal. And I appreciate the fact that you incorporated the board's goals and objectives into your presentation. That's the way that the select board, which is not going to issue the budget to town meeting, nonetheless will have a role in identifying our goals and objectives and hopefully incorporating them into the budget. So I appreciate that. So I see a lot of hands up. I think Mike was the first one.
I just want to say congratulations on the grants, the level of grants that you've been able to obtain. That in the past in the health department, going back to a couple of your predecessors or before a couple of your predecessors, the department was very, very successful in that. I think you're bringing that back, and that's really important, and it's really appreciated. Thank you.
Miriam.
Great. Hi, Sigal. Also a great presentation. I really think you've just done a fabulous job. And the question I'm going to ask is the same question I've asked everybody. So I know we gave you ARPA funding. I think you can correct me, but I think you were one of the few departments we actually gave funding for personnel. And you said, I'm going to get a grant for this person. And you did. So I really appreciate that. But if you could just go over the ARPA funding that your department got.
Sure. We have several small projects, some bigger than others, where I think we drive Tyler and Charlie crazy. But we have, so the Community Health Assessment and Improvement Plan, which I talked a lot about, they're really important for the department, that is ARPA funded. As you mentioned, our Emergency Preparedness Coordinator, ARPA funded. The Brookline Bounty Program, also mentioned in my presentation, that was originally grant funded for 1 year, and we were able to continue it for a couple of years with ARPA, and then also build it into the override. We've done a lot of rodent control with some ARPA funding. We purchased an electric vehicle. And then we have some small things, some software and hardware purchases for the department, as well as the Health Champions program, which I think when it was going through the process was called Gatekeepers, but we've rebranded it as Health Champions and continue to work to try and implement that. A couple new requests too going in, looking to do some mental health funding, possibly augmenting the human services study, additional rodent control if possible, and then looking at mental health center funding. So some other things out there to be able to fund too, but the first list was what has been established in funding.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Yes, thank you, Sigal, very much. I was wondering if there is, can you tell us a little bit about the outreach that is being done to let people know that we're, stepping up and making more of a front and center effort on the housing assistance front?
The Office of Housing Stability, or sort of what's coming out of the report?
I'm sorry, I should have been clear. The Office of Housing Stability.
Yeah, I know for us, a lot of the interaction is around inspectional services at this point. So one thing that we've communicated with our staff when they're going out and doing inspections, making sure that we refer to the website as possible resources. I think also something that we're looking to launch pretty soon, and Chaz, you can correct me if or anything you want to add, is what happens a lot is that there's so many different departments involved. So we're looking at really combining that through an intake system through multiple departments where we can capture that in the Acela system and make sure people are routed. We're sort of saying the no wrong door, that no matter where people call, they're routed to the appropriate resource for their need at that time. And a lot of times that could be varied resources. I always say many of our cases that we get might be a housing complaint, but there might be the need for fuel assistance or rental assistance, or there might be legal questions that we need, or discrimination questions that we need to refer and bring in other of our teammates here on the town side. So this new program will really help us do that.
Yeah, I'm sort of thinking in terms of if a person who's new to town and is living in an apartment and runs into an issue, and then they think, I wonder if the town can help me with this issue, and they go to the town website, would it be no trouble at all to quickly discover that Brookline has an Office of Housing Stability that can help, and maybe see some FAQs and some names and some numbers and some email addresses as to who to write or who to try to get in touch with?
Yes. So the Office of Housing Stability is listed right under, listed with all the departments, and there's a great wealth of information on that website, and which does refer to direct contact numbers for the departments for specific needs.
Yeah, good.
Is that link on the landing page or is it on your page?
It is right when you're on the landing page. If you hover over departments, okay. It's a separate listed department. Okay.
Any other questions? I'm sorry, John.
I'm sorry, Bernard, and I'll just add a final comment. I guess it's no secret. I think it's something that it would be a great PR move on, if you'll forgive my putting it that way, on the town's part, to shout it from the rooftops a little bit and feature it, say, on the landing page of the town website as Brookline can, if you are living in an apartment in Brookline, or in a private home or a situation, and you're fearful of your loss of your housing, or you are facing problems of how am I going to meet the costs of my housing or pay the rent on my housing, we can help. Just to make sure that there's nobody is missing the message when it comes to Brookline has an Office of Housing Stability, and we are here to help.
And I'm looking at the landing site, and
Me too.
yeah,
You have to go down a couple levels to find. Actually, I just did a search on housing. It was interesting to do that.
yeah. I mean that's what I was asking. I mean, when they go to the first landing page, as opposed to going into the departments and looking up public health and human services. I think this is an important enough office that it should be the first thing. It should be on the page that people first come to.
Well, I mean, it is, but are you saying you want it on the same level as parking, trash and recycling, permits and licenses? You want that, you want a housing stability button there? Because we can certainly do that.
I don't see it on the first page.
So if you go down to the, if you go to the menus up top, government, residents, businesses, departments, if you hover over departments, housing stability is one of the departments there. It's got its own
So
separate.
that's an extra step, and I know we should expect people to take those extra steps, but I think this is an important enough, office that people should be able to get to it without, knowing, first of all, to look under departments and knowing, what department to look under.
Okay, we can definitely put that on, try and put that on the banner here with parking, trash and recycling, so forth. I will say we are in the process now. Like I said, there's a 3-phase process to the Housing Stability Office. We actually just finished the training and development of phase 2, which is the Acela system that Sigal talked about. We are soft rolling that out now. It was my hope to make a exciting announcement about it in the next 2 weeks, but I guess stealing our own thunder here a little bit. It is proceeding really well, and I'm really grateful to Sigal, but really every department that has exhibited, put a ton of time and effort into making this work and work right. I think the board will be very pleased to see the variety of issues that are covered and how the workflow operates. But I do want us to be careful about not being able to, not over-promising and under-delivering. To your point, John, about if someone comes in and says, oh, I have a problem, I'm in danger of losing my home, I want us to be able to refer them to services, but we can't pay their rent. And I really don't want to set up the expectation that then they are disappointed when they realize that we can't provide that level of service to them.
I know, and I think it's important that they not misunderstand that. But we can refer them to some state programs that might even provide some rent assistance, at least temporary.
Yeah,
like Raft, I guess it's called. Yeah.
Yeah, and we want to just be messaging carefully. But again, this is something where Christina has been working with the team, and I think it's just great to have dedicated communication services available to provide this level of, and making sure, to your point, that when we're ready to hard launch it, ready to really get it out in the community and stress test it, that we're able to send that messaging out appropriately.
Great. Still have your hand up, John?
No, I'm sorry. I should lower that. I will.
Any other questions from the select board? Sigal, thank you for your presentations. It's always very informative and important to hear what your department's doing. So,
Can I just say
you have
one
your
more
hand
thing?
up?
Yeah, I have my Narcan. I have one in my car and I have one in my computer bag. And so I'm one of those 249 people. So I encourage you all to go get your Narcan. That's it.
Chaz has his too, right there in the office.
In my office.
Yay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda, warrant articles, public hearing, and this is a public hearing. Scheduled for 5:45. We're a little late, but not that late. Melissa, you want to lead us off? Article 8.
So Article 8 is an article that is looking to establish a revolving fund for vaccines. This is something that was requested by Sigal, and this is the mechanism that we are able to establish a revolving fund. So in essence, we have a vaccine program. We get reimbursement from that program from insurance providers. So this would allow Sigal to use the reimbursement to then purchase more vaccines. We left the wording broad, so it can be more than just the flu, it can be more than just COVID, just vaccines in general. And this is the template that is used to create revolving funds. Lincoln and I kind of looked at what was out there for town revolving funds to make sure that we had everything included in this bylaw. There's a change in law that has, there are some revolving funds that were established before the law changed, and then some that were established after. There is a requirement that all the revolving funds be listed in the bylaws. So this article accomplishes both. It establishes the revolving fund that Segal needs, but then it also has all of our revolving funds listed in the bylaws.
Great. Okay, thank you. Any questions from the select board before we open up the public hearing? Miriam, do you have your hand up? Oh, I'm sorry. You're reaching for something. Okay.
I'm the warrant article in the packet.
All right. Okay. Since no questions from the select board, Charlie, you want to open up the public hearing? Or I'm opening up the public hearing. Charlie, tell us if there's anyone with their hands up.
Well, we only have 3 attendees right now, so folks who are attending can use the hand raise or Q&A feature to let us know that they'd like to make a comment at this public hearing, and we'll give you 3 minutes to speak. Of our 3 attendees, nobody is raising their hand or using the Q&A feature.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing and go on. This seems fairly straightforward, and I don't think that anyone is going to oppose this. Is the select board ready to vote? Okay. Seeing no objection, I move favorable action on warrant article 8, the establishment of a departmental revolving fund for vaccines. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. John Van Scoyac.
Aye.
Miriam Ashkenazi.
Aye.
Mike Sandman.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. To my unexpert eyes, this looks like an incredibly good program. So thank you for whoever came up with it. Okay, next, Article 4, Special Appropriations. We're closing out some bond authorizations. And I see Lincoln Heineman is probably going to make that presentation, or is that?
I'll be covering this one too. Lincoln's
Okay.
just here for support, which I appreciate. Article 4 is an annual article that we file that provides a listing of all of the special appropriations, whether it be revenue financed capital accounts or bond financed capital accounts. And we send this out to departments every year as the warrant closes and asks them to update their project status. It's basically a way for the comptroller to have certainty that accounts can be closed when projects are completed and there may be excess funds still in the account. We're still in the midst of getting that information from department heads, and not much has changed from last year. And we don't anticipate any action under this article. We're likely to leave our current special appropriations where they are, and same thing with bond financed accounts too. So the recommendation under Article 4 is no action.
Okay, I think we're ready to move that. Okay, I move no action on, I'm sorry, this is a hearing. Okay, first of all, any questions from the select board? No?
Ryan, be done.
Okay. Let's open up this public hearing. Charlie, is there anyone interested in speaking?
We have the same 3 attendees here. Folks in the attendance list, please use the hand raise or Q&A feature to let us know you'd like to make a public comment at this hearing, and we will promote you and give you 3 minutes. Give that a couple seconds, but folks know the drill. No one is using the hand raise or Q&A feature right now, Bernard.
Okay, let's close the hearing. And I move no action on warrant article number 4, special appropriations, closeout report, bond authorization rescission, etc. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. John Van Scoyac.
Aye.
Miriam Ashkenazi.
Aye.
Mike Sandman.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Okay. Those are 2 warrant articles off the list. Next, special town meeting. Question of calling a special town meeting on Tuesday, May 28th, 2024 at 8 p.m. at the high school, and Zoom remote meeting to waive the requirements of section 2.1.2 through 2.1.4 of the town's bylaws to open and close the warrant, and to insert in said warrant the following article. Special town meeting 2, article 1, police civil service. Okay, Melissa, you can present that?
Sure. So as you are aware, or we have an agreement with the police union that allows the town to leave civil service for the police department. So in order to do that, we need to file a warrant article that achieves that. And so since the warrant was already closed after the agreement was reached, we need to call for a special town meeting that allows us to file the article that allows us to do this. So you should have a memo from me in your packet, which outlines the provisions of the bylaws that you need to waive in order to call for the special town meeting that can be scheduled within the annual town meeting. So this will be special town meeting 2. And once you do that, then we'll go ahead, and even though we've waived notice requirements, we're still going to go through the process of distributing the warrant like we typically do. And if Chaz has anything that you want to add, we can do that as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in on a couple of the specifics of the article itself. The procedure Melissa's outlined really well. The article rescinds the vote of town meeting from 1894 that entered the town into civil service for the police department. I know there was a question at the advisory subcommittee last week about whether or not this requires action from the legislature. I know some of our legislative delegation raised that question because they see those votes come in and they've seen Brookline do it that way in the past. We did reconfirm both with town council's office and with our legislative delegation that that vote is not necessary, that Brookline can leave the way it came in for a town meeting for now. I will say the same thing I've said before, which is the legislature, as part of its civil service reform process, is considering preventing communities from leaving, basically saying if you're in, you can't get out unless we let you out. If that were to happen, if the legislature were to put that on a track towards a vote, I would recommend to this board that you call an emergency special town meeting sooner than the regular town meeting for the purposes of, one, approving the CBA with the police so that that is done before you take the vote to leave civil service, and then take the vote to leave civil service. And that could be done with as little as 2 weeks notice. It would be tough, obviously, for town meeting members. We understand we want to be respectful of their time, but we also think this is such a priority and it's a once in a one, it has to be, if it can't be done now, then if the legislature is going to lock us out, then we need to beat the legislature to the punch here. The concern also that I've heard from members of the union, which again, we thank them for their negotiating in good faith on this, reaching this agreement, is, when civil service is complete, when we leave civil service, what are we leaving towards? That's referenced in attachment A of the memorandum of agreement that was distributed. It talks about how the assessment centers are going to work and how they're going to be devised by the chief. This is a cottage industry, right? There are entities out there that provide assessment center services to the departments that have left civil service already in Massachusetts. The chief is in discussions with her counterparts in other communities about how best to run this in a way that is effective and fair to union members and the department. And we are confident that we are going to be able to both quickly get that up and running and that we have the funding to do so. So this is not a hurry up and wait type situation. This will be a smooth transition with clear guidestones, but we also want to be clear that this is done and it is signed and ready to go. We're not moving in advance of the authorization to do so by town meeting. So I just want to provide that reassurance that we are confident that the process for transitioning from civil service will be smooth and collaborative with the union.
By the way, this would become effective at the vote on the 28th, or would it become effective when town meeting is adjourned?
So because this is a special town meeting, it will become effective at the dissolution of this town meeting, which is important. In the same way, the Pierce vote will become effective if it is passed at the dissolution of that special town meeting. The effective date.
So on the 28th, as opposed to on whenever.
Well, that's the hope, is that we will handle all the time sensitive material, and it will depend on what the new moderator wishes to do. It will be our hope that we handle all the time sensitive material on the first night and move on to the budget the second night.
Right. Okay. By the way, I take it we don't need a public hearing for this?
So this is just the procedural matters to put this on. Then we will put this into your regular business for a public hearing.
Okay.
And we'll probably do that next week so that you and any members of the public who wish to comment on this will be free to do so.
Okay. Any questions from the select board? Okay, we have some motions. Two motions. First of all, I move to call a second special town meeting on Tuesday, May 28th, 2024 at 8 p.m. at the high school auditorium and via Zoom to waive the requirements of section 2.1.2 through 2.1.4 of the town's bylaws, to open and close the warrant, and to insert in said warrant the following article. Article 1, to see if the town will vote to remove all positions in the police department of the town of Brookline from the provisions of the civil service laws, including general laws, chapter 31 et sequitur, and the rules and regulations related to the same, by revoking the town's acceptance of the provisions of chapter 267 of the Acts of 1894, voted under the third article of the warrant for the town meeting held on May 29, 1894, or act on anything relative thereto. Any questions regarding this motion? Okay, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye. John Van Scoyac,
Aye.
Miriam Ashkenazi,
Aye.
Mike Sandman,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Next motion is I move to execute the warrant for the May 28th, 2024 second special town meeting. Any discussion of that? No? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. John Van Scoyac,
Aye.
Miriam Ashkenazi,
Aye.
Mike Sandman,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Okay, so we are off and running.
Mhm.
And there's nothing else on the agenda. Anything that people want to raise, or of course we can't, but you
No,
know, we
that's
say,
right.
what we can say is enjoy yourself in Jamaica, Miriam. Okay,
And
we
yeah,
don't need to post that.
thanks to
Okay.
the three people who were in attendance tonight.
Right.
We had as many as 8 before. I'm not sure.
That's
Okay.
real dedication.
Yeah. Okay. So with that, the meeting is over. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Aye.